Please subscribe to this channel for more videos related to Catholic Christian teaching. There is a controversy between the Thomists and Scotists as to whether the prime motive of the Incarnation of the Son of God was the redemption of mankind, or whether its cause was the glory of God. In the Scotist view, the Son of God, in order to crown the work of the creation, would have become man even without the fall, but in an impassible body, that is, unconditioned or absolute predestination of the Incarnation. The unconditioned predestination is taught by the Scotists, and even before Scotus by Isaac Nineveh of the 7th century, Rupert of Deuce, and Saint Albert the Great, and by many modern theologians. Impassibility is a theological concept describing God's inability to suffer or be emotionally changed by external forces, stemming from his unchanging and self-sufficient nature. The conditioned predestination of the Incarnation, as taught by the Thomists, teaches that the prime motive of the Incarnation of the Son of God was the redemption of mankind, so that without the fall of the first parents, the Incarnation would not have taken place. The testimony of sacred scripture favors the Thomistic view. In numerous passages, it names the redemption of mankind from sin as the motive of the Incarnation, while it never mentions that the Incarnation would have occurred even without the fall. The Fathers are unanimous in teaching that the Incarnation of God was solely to redeem mankind. St. Augustine says, if mankind had not fallen, the Son of Man would not have come. Why did he come into the world? To save sinners. There was no other reason for his coming into the world. The Scotists seek a biblical basis for their view in the teaching of St. Paul that the whole creation is coordinated to Christ as its destination and head. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation, for in him all things in heaven and on earth were created, things visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions, or rulers or powers. All things have been created through him and for him. He himself is before all things, and in him all things hold together. However, it must be observed that in verse 17, in which Christ is represented as the firstborn of every creature, as the creator of the universe, including the world of angels, as the goal of creation, and as a sustainer of the world. The fact of the Incarnation is entirely separated from. so that he appears as the goal of the creation, not as man, but as God. Since it is as God that he is the creator, so it is also as God that he is the goal of the creation. The position of head which is attributed to him in Colossians, verse 18, in regard to the church, has its foundation in the fact of the redemption, that in God's plan, Christ, independent of sin and redemption, should take the position of head is not thereby asserted. In Hebrew chapter 2 verse 10, the relative word "for whom are all things and by whom are all things" is to be understood as referring not to Christ but to God the Father. Those assertions of sacred scripture which made the redemption of mankind the purpose of the Incarnation are regarded by the Scotists as referring solely to the factual order of salvation initiated by sin, in which the Son of God came into the world with a passible body. However, it is remarkable that sacred scripture should be silent concerning the possibility of his coming in an impassible condition. The speculative foundation of the Scotist thesis is that the end cannot be less important than the means to the end. Therefore, the Incarnation as the most sublime of God's work could not have been effected primarily for the purpose of saving creatures. The Thomist replied that the redemption is indeed the proximate purpose of the Incarnation, but its ultimate purpose is, of course, God's glory. Again, the Scotists find it inappropriate that sin, which God hates, should be the occasion for the most glorious revelation of God. The Thomists see therein all the greater proof of God's love and mercy. O happy fault, which merited for us so great a Redeemer! According to the Scottish view, all grace, not only the grace of fallen mankind, but also the grace of man in paradise and the grace of the angels, derives from the merits of the God-man. Thus, Christ assumes a central, all-transcending position in the divine world plan. The Thomist view is less ambitious than that of Scottists, but appears to be better supported in the sources of the faith. Please go to YouTube Retirement channel playlist Doctrine of Jesus Christ the Redeemer for the complete series of these materials.